Okay, good
Oh,
evening.
There it is.
7:30. Okay, so we will return from recess. And, oh, Nicole, if you can please call the roll.
See where Mr. Cole is.
Oh, wait, I'm here. I'm sorry. I had my mic muted. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Fuller,
Here.
Mr. DeLomo, Mr. Manel,
Here.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Here.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Here.
Mr. Mamie,
Here.
Ms. Tallarico,
Here.
Mr. DeGennaro, Mr. Puglielli. Okay, and Madam Chair?
Here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
will, I will read the cases carried to August 18th, 2022, to be held in person in the public meeting room, municipal building, deal in Monmouth Roads in Oakhurst. And Mr. Steinberg, is that still the case?
Yes, these cases will be carried. I'm going to research whether or not new notice is required. But if we're announcing it tonight, they will automatically be carried, possibly without further notice, to our meeting of August 18th, 2022. That's the third Thursday of the month at the Municipal Building, 399 Monmouth Road, Oakhurst, New Jersey, 07755. And any of the applications are on file and can be viewed during regular business hours prior to that meeting.
Okay.
Take it
the
away.
Following cases: Ashkenazi, block 11.01, lot 3, 1036 Norwood Avenue in Ocean. Sean Realty LLC, block 141, lot 3, NJSH Route 66, Asbury Avenue in Ocean. Cordoba Ocean LLC, block 205, lots 2 and 3, 1309 Herbert Avenue, 1312 Allenhurst Avenue, Ocean. 199 Highwood Road LLC, block 25.16, lot 2, 199 Highwood Road, Ocean. Sorora Land Development, block 22, lots 85 and 85.01, 280 Norwood Avenue, Ocean. Stephen Shammy, block 25, lot 141, 606 Corley's Avenue in Ocean. And Larchwood Mignon, block, do I have to read that one again?
You can, if anybody's listening.
Okay.
Twice
Larchwood
doesn't
Mignon,
hurt.
block 8.02, lot 3 and 23, 48 Larchwood Avenue, Ocean, zone R1. And on the board, our first case is Daniel Tabelli, block 11.01, lot 6, 208 Lockwood Place, Ocean, zone R4. And I apologize, is there an attorney representing? I don't see one listed. Okay. This is an application to construct a 2-story addition, a second floor addition over the covered patio, and install 2 AC condensers with variances for front and side yard setbacks, as well as maximum building coverage. And Mr.
Just for the record, Mark Steinberg, Board Attorney. Mr. Tabelli is an active client of mine, together with some other members of his family and some business matters. And I'm recusing myself as the Board Attorney in this matter for those reasons. And Mark Lechstein, our Planning Board Attorney, is taking my place for this application only.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for joining us, Mr. Lechstein. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Tabelli, are you here?
Here.
Yes, okay. Will you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay, and if you can just state your name, your address. And I just want to confirm there's no attorney present for you, correct? You'll be
Yeah.
testifying on your behalf.
The architect's here though, Mr. Passman.
Okay.
Okay,
If you can just state your name and your address, and then I will have our professionals give a summary.
Daniel Tabelli, 208 Lockwood Place, Oakhurst, New Jersey. 077.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Higgins, if you can please begin.
I'll summarize. This is an extremely
challenged lot. It's 4,500 square feet and the zone requires 10,000 square feet. And it has 3 street frontages. Because of the unusual configuration of Lockwood Place, all of those 3 street frontages are Lockwood Place. The applicant is proposing to basically construct a second story over existing first story structures on the site with one small section that's over an open patio area. So by going up where there are existing front yard setback variances, they're making those variances technically more serious, and therefore they need variances for the front yard setbacks and for a side yard setback also. I really don't have a big problem with the application. I'm sorry, there's no side yard setback variance. It's just the 3 front yard setbacks are being extended vertically. They also need a variance for maximum building coverage. The ordinance permits 27% of buildable lot area, or be a 911 square feet. And they're proposing 40.5%, which is 1,366 square feet. Again, this lot is so small, and if it were a conforming lot, they could have over 2,000 square foot of building. So I think there's a significant hardship there. The accessory structures, 3 feet in height, must maintain a required 30-foot front setback and 10-foot side yard setback. The front setback is 6 feet to this condenser facing Lockwood Place and 3.38 feet to the side setback of the other condenser. And I just think the applicant has to explain why those condensers have to be where they are. I don't have a big problem with it. Again, I think there's significant hardship involving the size of this lot and the 3 street frontages.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matlack?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing that I have noted in my report is that the applicant should provide testimony regarding the reason for location of the proposed AC unit and any proposed screening for that unit.
Mr. Tabelli, if you can tell us about your request and if you can address the concerns about the condensers as well as the coverage or screen.
Can I have assistance from my architect to help me answer that question?
Yes, and your architect's name?
Donald Passman.
Passman. Okay, Mr. Passman. Okay, there you are on my screen. Thank you for waiting. And you've testified before this board, so if there's no objections, we will accept your testimony. If you can tell us about the request.
Madam Chair, we do need to swear him in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Passman, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Let me just briefly just say what we're doing here. Again, like Mr. Higgins said, there's a 1-story garage with a little covered patio on the east side that runs into the house. And that's how you get access without getting rained on, for example. And in this proposal, we're putting a 2nd story over some of the covered patio, but all of the garage. And the reason is to get 2 bedrooms and a bathroom into this new addition. Some of the addition as it abuts the house is 2 stories in nature, but most of it is a 2nd story addition. This allows this former garage, or what is now a garage, to become a family room. There isn't really a lot of playroom space for kids and so forth. The basement is only 6'10" in height and not very attractive. There's a furnace down there, and it's mostly for storage and so forth. So here's the new 2nd story, 2 bedrooms. The bathroom is adjacent to the other portion of the house to allow for the plumbing to work off of that plumbing. And that's the simple part of it. As far as the AC units, to address that, the existing AC unit is on the east side, and it has a side yard non-conformity. We're not changing that AC unit. It already runs into the house. It works the air conditioning for now. The addition is going to require more air conditioning. Therefore, we need another air conditioning unit, a condenser outside. The only reasonable place to put it is in the place where it's shown. in that it's going to serve that addition. I can't put it next to the other one. I can't put it somewhere else. It's too far away. So it's a logical place to put this condenser, roughly 30 inches by 30 inches, maybe even 30 inches high. It's closer to the front property line on that Lockwood side, the west side, as being the only place to put it. And we don't propose any screening only because it's a road there, a very untraveled road, to say the least. I know that area pretty well because I had relatives who live right up the road on South Lincoln, and we bicycled down that road more than anything else. And I just feel that there's no real necessity to screen it. It's not like there's a neighbor there who's staring at this unit. There's not a lot of noise that's going to impede somebody else. So that's where it's placed. That's why it's placed there. And that's all I have to say about that issue. If you have any other questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Tabelli, did you have another witness or expert? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, are there any questions from the board or comments? Okay, I am not seeing any. Are there any questions or comments from, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, questions or comments from the public? Okay, not seeing any. If we can have a motion to close the public hearing,
I'll move.
I'll second. And Nicole, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes, okay.
I didn't
and-
miss anybody, did I? No, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you. And if there's a offer regarding, I believe it's the front yard, max building coverage and accessory structure variances.
I'll move for a positive resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, Nicole, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Sorry.
okay. Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So I believe that concludes Mr. Tabelli's case. And we will welcome back Mr. Steinberg.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Lexstein.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank
this
you very
evening.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case is Michael and Kathleen Nar, block 33.01, lot 1, 536 Apple Drive, Oakhurst, zone R4. This is an application to replace and relocate an AC condenser into the technical front yard to construct a seasonal screened-in porch over an existing deck and construct an 8.5 foot shed. And Mr. or Michael and Kathleen Nari, are you here?
We are.
And do you have an attorney representing you?
We do not.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, and can you please state your name and your address?
Yes, I'm Michael Nair, 536
Nair.
Apple Drive, Oakhurst.
And Kathy Nair, 536 Apple Drive, Oakhurst.
Can you turn your video on, please?
Sure.
That's the problem. Okay. There we go.
That better?
Thank you. And sorry for mispronouncing that, so it's Nair. Okay, I will turn it over to Mr. Higgins and then Mr. Matlack.
Okay, yeah, what, as has been explained, what they're trying to do is construct a screened-in porch over an existing deck where the existing front setback of the building is 25.59 feet from Pear Street. And they're proposing the porch to be 24 feet from Pear Street because of the fact that the building is at an angle to Pear Street. So if they make it consistent with the side yard, with the side of the building, it would get a little bit closer to Pear. I don't have a big problem with that. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a screened-in porch over the deck. Second is the AC condenser. And when I looked at the site, that, again, that's in a front yard, 20 feet from Pear Street, but I don't see any other place on the site to reasonably put it. And you do have a very upward slope towards Pear Street. So it's screened from Pear Street visually. So I don't have a big problem there. And the proposed shed doesn't require any variances.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matlack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Engineering wise, I don't have any substantial comments.
Okay, Mr. and Ms. Naird, if you can raise your right hand. And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay, if you can please tell us about your request.
Well, to start with the AC condenser, we need to replace the condenser in general because it was it's kind of on its last leg. And the previous owners, I guess, built a deck around it in the backyard. So being that we have to replace it, we thought it would be better suited on the Pear Street side, which is technically a dead end, and away from us more, so we can use the backyard more. And that was the hardship. And it would be away from the neighbors, completely covered. We did the fence last year with the variance, so that takes care of displacing that and not making it seen or really heard by anybody. As far as the screened-in porch, we're just looking for like a area of privacy and some shade and insect-free. Really, it's not seasonal. It's just like a summertime place for privacy. And the shed conforms from what we were told when we went, but we just put it on here just so you see all the projects together.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from any board members? Okay, questions or comments from the public? Okay, motion to close.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, and if someone will offer for the front yard, rear yard, max building, and accessory structure variances?
Is there a rear yard?
No, it's not a rear yard. There's just a front
No
yard.
rear yard, okay.
And
We got two front yards, one for the accessory and one for the porch.
That's right.
Okay. Okay,
I'll offer a positive resolution.
Second.
okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And we will move on to our next case. Okay, this is Joseph Shira, LLC, Block 26.04, Lot 29, 9 Abyss Place, Ocean Zone R4. This is an application to construct an addition to the existing second floor and expand the existing covered front porch on a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling that does not meet the required rear yard setback. And the attorney is Mr. Robert L. Wittek. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For purposes of the record, good evening. My name is Robert Whittick, W-I-T-E-K, from the law firm of Resnikoff, and Whittick. And I have the privilege this evening of representing the applicant, Joseph Chira LLC.
Okay, thank you. I will ask Mr. Higgins, followed by Mr. Matlack, to give us their reports.
Surely. It's fairly short, so I'll just read it. The applicant proposes to modify an existing residence, including construction of a second story above portions of the existing building that are currently one story. The site's irregularly shaped, is located at the end of Abyss Place, which is a cul-de-sac. It's occupied by a single-family residence. Portions of the residence are 2 stories. Portions are 1 story. A small portion of the residence is non-conforming with regard to rear yard setback requirement of the ordinance. Due to the irregular shape of the lot, the depth is non-conforming also. 100 feet is required and 80 feet exists. Following variance is necessary. Principal building rear yard setback. The ordinance requires 30 feet. The existing residence is set back 21.9 feet from the rear property line. The proposed second story addition extends that non-conforming condition vertically, which requires a variance. The portion of the new second story of the residence that is within the required 30-foot rear yard setback is approximately 200 square feet in area, which is less than 10% of the entire footprint of the building. There's no extension of the building facade. Given the irregular shape of the lot and the proposed building height of 25 feet where 35 feet is permitted, I don't have a significant problem with the variance. I just did note the plans indicate a building height of 27 feet, which is measured from grade. The ordinance measures the height of the elevation from the first floor, which is 2 feet above the finished grade, so the building height is 25 feet, not 27. I don't have a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Matlack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things. The applicant should revise the depressed curb detail to include 6-inch thick reinforced concrete for the driveway apron. There is a proposed new vinyl fence along the side property line and kind of along the front, near the front corner of the house. We need to specify the height of that proposed fence. And it appears the applicant's proposing the removal of the existing retaining wall near the rear property line. And the applicant should submit topographic information and clarify whether any grading modifications are proposed as part of this application. And if so, a grading plan should be submitted. I would recommend that any approval would be subject to the submission of a grading plan for my review. The limits of curb, sidewalk, and driveway apron replacement in the right-of-way should be clearly shown on the plans. And a revision to the detail for the curb and sidewalk section is required to show 4 inches of asphalt base course and 6 inches of dense graded aggregate. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Whittick.
May I respectfully respond to that request? I think a lot of that stuff is not unreasonable. I guess the only question I would have is, would the board consider that as some sort of a post-resolution compliance issue, assuming the board saw fit to grant relief rather than come back? I mean, certainly I can.
I don't have a problem with that. The changes to be made or discussed in the testimony could be a condition of approval.
Well, and I know, at least I'm reasonably certain that the issue, the curbing and the sidewalk, I know there was no intention whatsoever to disturb that. But I guess, you know, again, as a post-resolution compliance issue, we could probably, that's when it would probably be appropriately addressed. I would prefer not to have to come back if you.
I guess, Mr. Whittick.
What's that? No, not at all. Not at all, Mr. Steinberg, not at all. But my.
Yeah, that one. If the board approves it, there would be a condition of resolution compliance. And if you're not disturbing anything and it's satisfactory to Mr. Matlock, then he can certainly waive that at that juncture.
Yeah, that's fine. As I say, I just,
Okay, Mr. Whittick, can you tell us about your client's request?
Well, what I'd prefer to do, Madam Chair, is if I could present the testimony of Patrick Ward from Insight Engineering for some very quick testimony.
Okay, and Mr. Ward, okay, there you are. You can raise your right hand. You affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth.
I do.
Okay, and you can tell us about your credentials.
Sure. I'm with Insight Engineering in Wall Township. I've been with the firm for 12 and a half years. I'm a licensed professional engineer for just over 8 years and a licensed professional planner for 7. I've testified before this board several times, a couple times this year, and numerous boards throughout the state in both capacities.
So moved, Madam Chair, Mr. Steinberg.
Okay, so if there's no objections, we will accept your testimony as an expert.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Whittick?
Mr. Ward, in 30 seconds or less, please describe for the board what exactly it is that the applicant is proposing to do and how you think it fits within the criteria of C1, C2, and the Kaufman interpretation.
Sure. So yeah, and I'll be brief. As Mr. Higgins suggested, it's a very simple application. There's an existing home at the end of the Abbas Court cul-de-sac, and the unusual nature of this property is that the bulb of the cul-de-sac creates a kind of a pinch point or a shallow portion of the property at its center. So while it's a very wide lot for the zone, it is shallow, and that's an existing nonconformity that's obviously to remain. There's an existing two-story dwelling on the property. The applicant seeking to put in second floor additions above a rear sunroom and above an existing garage. The rear yard setback to the dwelling is 21.9 feet, where 30 feet is required. And one of the additions is going above that point of the property. It's really a rear corner of the property. And that's really why I believe we're here tonight. None of the other additions encroach on any setbacks. There's no height issues as we're matching the existing ridge line. There is an expanded front porch, but that fully meets the front yard as well. Coverages are well within the ordinance allowances. And so basically, from a planning standpoint, I feel this is a C1 hardship as the lot depth is irregular and is shallow for the zone. It's something we can't reasonably cure. And it really limits the extent to which we can utilize the property, particularly for a building expansion. In terms of looking at this as a C2, the purposes of planning are maintained here. Notably, desirable visual environment is provided. Not only are we doing additions, but the facade improvements that are going to be done will obviously update the house and the aesthetics, and existing light, air, and open space are maintained. In terms of the negative criteria and any impacts, we feel there really are little impact, if any. The rear addition that's vertical, it's only a second floor. That property and the location of the dwellings has existed in its location for many years, seemingly without impact. And any impact to the public, there is none by way of this particular variance as it's in the rear. And we feel that the aesthetics are really a positive impact, if anything. So based on that, I feel it's a reasonable request, and the board can confidently approve based on that.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Ward.
Mr. Whittick, will the construction match the existing in style, color, roof material, etc.?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And Mark, I should probably move in the survey. I'm sorry, Mr. Steinberg. I should move in the survey as A1 and the.
Well, I think we have all that in our packet.
Right, but just for purposes of the record, should we mark it at least? Or I don't care.
Well,
I would be surprised.
We have the survey in our packet.
Okay, and
you want to move in something else?
Well, I delivered the plans last week, but they were initially part of the initial packet, so just in case.
Go ahead, move in whatever you like.
Well, I sent them over. They would be the plans. I guess they were dated. Gosh, I should just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, Mr. Whittick, we're on brevity time.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
I'll withdraw that. I don't.
Yeah, we have it. We have it all. It's on file and it's part of our packet.
Withdrawn.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Whittick, do you have any other?
I have nothing else.
Expert?
Nope, I have nothing else, Madam Chair. I'd ask for a vote. I think we've certainly established a basis for relief under all the circumstances consistent with.
Yeah, I just, not to belabor this, Mr. Ward, you appeared as an engineer and a professional planner, correct?
Sorry, Mr. Steinberg, I lost you for a second there.
You appeared as both the engineer and the professional planner. You're both.
Correct. While we
Okay.
haven't done any engineering on the lot, I had a chance to review all the files well in advance.
Okay, did you see the requirements from Mr. Matlack? Are you okay with those?
Yeah, particularly the construction detail. Yeah, those are reasonable as Mr. Whittick explained.
Okay, we can make this a condition if the board approves it for resolution compliance.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, now,
Nicole,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nicole, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
okay, and Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, now, prior to moving forward, Mark, Mr. Ashkenazi would like to bring up the fact that he knows the people that are the applicants. So he doesn't know if he should recuse himself in this instance. So I'd like him to.
Well, we have 7 members available. Somebody came, we have 6 or 7.
We have
7, right?
one,
We have 7
two,
members. Mr. Ashkenazi, if you're uncomfortable in voting, just recuse yourself on this, and there's certainly sufficient number of other members to vote.
Okay,
Here we go.
I'll recuse.
So wait, hold on. We're all set, right? On the Chira matter?
No, we're not done yet.
We're not done yet. Sit back. Well,
Sorry. That's what I'm trying to understand what's, I'm like, wait, what?
okay. The Madam Chairman asked if anybody from the board has any comments. There are none. I don't know if you got to the public yet. Shawanda, did you?
Yes. And we
We already
closed
closed
the
the public record.
And we closed the public hearing. Mr. Ashkenazi has a friendship or an acquaintance with the applicant and chose to recuse himself. So you now have 6 eligible voters. You
So
want to go forward?
Can I make a motion for a positive resolution with any of the conditions discussed in terms of post resolution compliance?
Got it.
I'll second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
okay, Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Whittick, we are finished with Mr. Shira.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I sort of jumped the gun a little bit. I apologize. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.
You too.
You?
Okay.
Next case is Raymond Saka, block 40.02, lot 17, 502 Deal Road, Ocean, Zone R3. This is an application for a pre-existing non-conforming property to construct front and rear additions as well as a rear pergola within the front and rear yard setbacks. The attorney is Mr. David Estes.
Good evening, members of the board. David Estes on behalf of the applicant Raymond Saka.
Thank you. And we will hear from Mr. Higgins and Mr. Matlack.
We're jumping the gun just a little bit. Nicole, please mark the packet as B1.
Okay.
As well as all the other packets that we've had applications on tonight.
I've been doing that as we've been going along.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I forgot it. So, and so you keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Higgins.
This is a little bit more complicated than some of the previous applications, so I am going to read my report and go through it because there's 7 variances that are necessary. The applicant's proposing to construct several additions to an existing 1-story residence. The improvements will include a 2nd-story addition to a portion of the existing 1-story residence, a new 1-story addition to the rear of the residence. The site's undersized at 15,400 square feet with 140 feet of frontage on Deal Road and a depth of 110 feet. It's occupied by a one-story single-family residence and a shed. The site is zoned R3 residential, which permits single-family residences on minimum 18,750 square foot lots with a minimum depth of 125 feet. The following variances are required. Minimum lot area required of 18,750 square feet. 15,400 square feet exists and is proposed. Minimum lot depth, 125 feet required, 110 feet existing and proposed. Minimum front yard setback, 45 feet required, 35 feet is existing and proposed. Minimum rear yard setback, 40 feet is required, 38 feet 1 inch exists, and 37 feet 2 inches is proposed. So it's just about a foot less than what currently exists. Maximum building coverage, 25% of buildable lot area is permitted, 23% exists, and 26.6% is proposed. Minimum side setback of the accessory structure, 10 feet is required, 5 foot exists, and 5 foot's proposed. Minimum rear yard setback of an accessory structure, 40 feet is required, 5 feet exists, and 5 feet is proposed. The minimum lot area, that's an existing condition. There's really no way to improve that. Same thing with the minimum lot depth. They're both existing conditions, and I can't see any way that the applicant can change those to make them conforming or closer to conforming. The front yard setback, the ordinance requires 45 feet. They're proposing 35 feet, and the west side of the existing building is set back 39 feet. The proposed additions do not increase the existing 35-foot non-conforming setback because you have a second story, it's moving upwards, so that exacerbates the magnitude of the setback, and therefore the variance is required. The addition, there's also an additional 2 feet into the required front yard, and that increases the magnitude of the front yard setback. This reduces the setback of this part of the building from 39 feet to approximately 37 feet. And it's not dimensioned on the plan, so those dimensions are approximate. They need to be clarified. With regard to the rear yard setback, the ordinance requires a minimum rear yard setback of 40 feet. The existing residence is 38 feet 1 inch. The proposed one-story addition extends that non-conforming setback approximately 19.5 feet in a direction that's consistent with the rear of the house, so that they're moving. They're not making it 19.5 foot rear yard setback, but they're increasing the magnitude by extending that setback, non-conforming setback, 19.5 feet towards the side lot line. In addition, the proposed second story addition extends beyond the existing first floor to reduce the rear setback to 37 feet 2 inches. Consequently, a variance is necessary for extending the existing rear yard setback of the first floor and reducing the existing rear yard setback of the new second floor to 37 feet 2 inches. It should be noted that the requests for front yard setback and rear yard setback relief result in a total deficit of 12 feet 8 inches to 10 feet short of the front yard and 2 feet 8 inches short of the rear yard. The lot depth is 15 feet less than required, so that there is an element of hardship as it relates to the depth of the lot. If the lot depth were conforming 125 feet, it would be possible to construct this residence without any variances for front and rear yard setback. The building coverage, the existing building coverage is 23%, 25% is required. They're proposing, it's 26.6%. And again, because of the undersized nature of the lot, the building that's being proposed is actually smaller than what could be constructed on a conforming lot. So again, there's an element of hardship with that variance. With regard to the accessory building setbacks, the ordinance requires that all accessory structures exceeding 150 square feet and/or 10 feet in height maintain the required side and rear yard setbacks of the principal structure. The shed has an area of 160 square feet and is set back 5 feet from the rear lot line where 40 feet is required and 5.4 feet from the side where 10 feet is required. That's an existing condition. There's really no indication whether that's a legally existing structure or whether it had been constructed without permits. So that needs to be discussed. And if it's a legally existing structure, no variance is necessary. But if it's ever replaced, it'll be required to conform to get a variance. It should be noted that the requested variances appear to fall under the C1 hardship criteria, which involves a demonstration that there is a practical and undue hardship with regard to the use of the property that relates to the size, shape, or topography of the property due to unusual physical features of the such property. It really doesn't mean that you can't use the property, but it means that you can't use it to the extent that you would be able to use it if the property were fully conforming and didn't have these hardships. So it inhibits the extent to which the property can be used, and that is justification for a hardship variance.
Thank you. Mr. Matlack?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is much simpler. I had in my report that the applicant should provide topographic survey information and indicate whether there will be any changes in grade or impacts to stormwater runoff. Since my report, the applicant did submit a revised survey indicating existing grades. No proposed grades were shown, but generally the topography of the site slopes towards the street. So I don't really have any issues with the proposed building additions and any negative impacts from those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Esses, you can please tell us about the case.
Great, thank you. So I guess we'll try to keep it as brief as we can. Just by way of introduction, if I could share the screen.
Oh,
It might be, if not, then, okay.
I'm sorry.
Nicole, okay.
I got
should-
it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
thanks. Thanks, Amy.
I just wanted to pull up, so the,
You all set?
yeah,
Okay.
where'd it go? Ooh. Okay, so this is a one-story ranch. It's on Deal Road. It's a mid-century modern ranch. It's about 2,500 square feet. I won't go into repeating Mr. Higgins' explanation of the technical portion of it. By way of testimony, I'd like to introduce Gilad Tehrani. And he's testifying essentially for two purposes. Mr. Tehrani is a licensed contractor. He is the contractor who would be doing the construction, but he's also the tenant. Mr. Tehrani has been in the property for a number of years. He intends to stay there. And essentially the construction is being built to accommodate him and his large family. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tehrani, who's with me in my office.
And Mr. Tehrani, can you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever testified before this board?
No.
Okay, can you tell us just briefly about your credentials?
My name is Gilad Tehrani. I'm being just spell your last name for the record. Tehrani, T-E-H-E-R-A-N-I. Thank you. I've been a licensed contractor for approximately 15 years. I do a lot of renovation and addition specifically in this area in our community. I live in this house for some years, and I was trying to make it a little bit more accommodating to my family.
And Mr. Tehrani, you're licensed in New Jersey, correct?
Yes, yes,
For
definitely.
15 years. Okay,
Yes.
we will accept. Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay. So Mr. Tehrani, why don't you explain to the board what your plan is? This is part of what has been submitted as part of the packet, which has been admitted pursuant to Mr. Mark Steinberg's request. Why don't you start with explaining what we're doing?
So the house have 4 bedrooms, a living area, a kitchen, and a small office or living area on the back. The bedrooms of the house are very, very small. If you look at the front of the house, the bedroom is 8 foot wide and 10 foot wide. And what we're trying to do is to get
2 more bedrooms in the second floor, just to make a nicer master bedroom with a walk-in closet and a master suite and another bedroom. In the main floor of the house, when you walk in, there is a small area to put a dining room table and a sofa. So the proposed addition on the back, it's basically making that back area to be the new dining room. This way we can, host our big family, and just extend the left side. Well, not extend the left side of the house. What we do, we're gonna raise the ceiling. The kitchen right now, the ceiling is 7 foot tall. So we really want to raise the ceiling this way the house is not feeling that low. We're gonna keep the look of the house, the way it is, a California style, mid-century moderns with the details on the outside, everything gonna look the same. But we just wanna have the house a little bit bigger. Again, if you look at the setback is approximately 20 feet. If the allowable build area is about 20 to 25 feet, if I'm not mistaken, and really you cannot squeeze 2 nice sized bedroom with a bathroom. That's why in the second floor addition that we do, we had to do a cantilever to go on both sides of the house, about a foot and a half, just to have a nicer space to put the bedrooms.
Tell me about, well, just to back up a second, how many children do you have?
I have 2 kids. And
2 kids?
2 kids, and
How many people live in your house?
Right now 4.
Okay.
We're hoping to,
to grow.
To grow, yes.
Okay. Show me. Okay, is the style that you're going to keep the style of the house?
Yes.
It's going to stay in the same character as the house
Yes.
currently is, and within the character of the neighborhood. Is that
Yes,
correct?
definitely.
Tell the board a little bit more about how far you're going over the line, the setback line on each side, so we can better understand within this.
So existing on the left side of the house, we have a 35 foot front setback that we need a 45 foot. So that stay the same. And on the right side of the house, we going more about 1.5 foot more to the setback, but we still stay within the 35 feet that is existing right now on the left. We're not going less than 35. On the back side of the house, we go, as I say, about 1.5 foot into the setback. The existing is 38 point something, and we're going to 37.5.
And the first floor on the first floor where the bedrooms are, that's not being extended.
No.
The second floor is going to be
A cantilever on both sides of the house, in the front and in the back. Yes.
Okay.
Again, just to accommodate a nice size bedroom. We're doing 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor on that side of the house. And to have a nice size bedroom, if it's 25 feet, it's not enough. So it's going to be about 28 feet. So you can fit 2 nice size bedroom and 2 bathrooms.
Would you say without it, it'd be the bedrooms would be
the bedroom going to be
below standard size?
It's going to be about 12 foot wide. For a master suite, it's very small.
Okay. I think we can keep the testimony short. Are there any questions from the board?
Can you tell us about the shed?
Oh, the shed, we did a permit for that approximately 15 years ago.
Okay.
So it's should be legally in.
I think one of the
And we're not doing any changes to that for the shed.
All right, and if the board grants the approval, we'll condition that if the shed is destroyed or removed, that it have to be replaced in a conforming location.
Well, the problem is right now that it's instead of 150 square feet, it's 160 square feet. If it's with 150, so the location can stay the same, right? So
yeah, obviously, yeah. If
So-
you can conform, if you want to make it smaller and conform, yes, you need the 5 and 5. I agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm just saying that if something happens to this shed, you need to replace it with a conforming shed and or
Yes.
conforming location.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah,
We're,
that's
we're
what-
requesting the variance for it. I think the fact is that we think that it actually might be smaller than 160, although that's what's on the plan. So it may be. It
Well,
may
you
be
just,
closer
you
to-
just, you just told me that you received permits for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have permits for it, what do we need to give variances?
Okay.
And, you know,
No, we thought it was legal. It was done with permits. And, you know, the fact that it was raised here wasn't expected by anybody. So,
so you're asking that we grant variances as existing location because it's so close to the
correct,
150 square feet, right?
correct.
And you didn't build it. It was there when you bought it or when
No, they
you
put it
came
in
about?
15 years ago.
It was put in 15 years ago. And we'll indicate it could stay if the board so chooses, but in the event that it should be destroyed or taken down, it has to be replaced with a conforming shed and or a conforming location for a shed of that size.
Yes.
We're not gonna make you take it down. I don't believe. Just, I know it. Well, we can do that if the board so chooses.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, a quick question. Sir, I'm troubled by, to be honest with you, I'm troubled by our planner's report that mentions the front yard setback and the fact that you may not be going closer to, may not be getting closer to the front yard setback, but since you're building up, it'll be much more noticeable. How many along that stretch, I'm trying to remember, I feel like there might be one other house that's 2 stories. Are you sure you can testify that it's going to keep the same character as the other houses along that street with a roof line and seems to be missing in the
Yeah.
There is 3 types of houses on Deal Road. There is this type of a house. It's a California style, mid-modern, mid-century modern. There is another style of a house that it's what you can see if you know the area. Probably most of Dwight Drive is that type of a house that it's like a T shape that's have a second floor above the garage. And there's a third type of a house on that street that is a 2-story that with a attached garage. I would say maybe 50% of the house is same as this house, and then the other 50 probably half the 2-story and half the other shape. Now the house on the left side is
I can pull that up here.
no, I'm saying on the existing house 502. On the left side we're going to be 15 feet high. The house is going to be 15 feet high. So I don't think it's going to be so much of a fact. On the right side, I think it's going to be 23 feet high. Right now, the house is, I think right now it's 15 feet high on the right side. But definitely the area, if you look behind this house, everybody have already 2 stories and 2 stories. You know, a lot of people building and making a 2-story house.
And I think if you look, I mean, I'm on Google. Am I shared screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are.
Okay, so you can see here, some of the houses already.
2 stories in the back.
2 stories or 2
the
stories in the
front.
back. I mean, they're,
The other way.
I don't know which way we're going, but there are 2 stories. For this example, this house has it, well.
If you go the other way,
I don't know.
closer to, when you go to 35, you're going to see the houses that have a 2-story.
For example, this house is
Yeah.
2 stories on Deal
2
Road.
stories on the road. If there's few of them that have 2 stories and an attached garage.
If you go further down, there are other 2 stories.
Yeah, if you go further down, there's the houses are not that style at all. It's a different style of houses. It's like a completely big two-story houses.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, because I did that, someone else still have a question, or I don't know if that answered Mr. Fuller's.
Mr. Fuller, do you have follow-up?
No, I'm good. I mean, I think there's two of those, two other 2 stories along that way. And I guess there's a couple with the T shape that might be considered 2-story, or maybe a split level or something like that. Go ahead, Mr. Van Dyke.
I think that this,
So I was going to ask, sort of segueing from Mr. Fuller's question, and you may be getting into it, Mr. Estes, but I was wondering if you had any more renderings for us other than just the floor plans, any architecturals that might show what in other words, what this 2-story will actually look like. The couple in that area, and I drive that road all the time. I know that it sort of extends the same roof line up when it goes 2-story, but this one sounds like it's going to be a different model potentially, if that's the right word. But I don't want to guess. I was just wondering.
Right, so-
if you had any.
It's not going to look the same as the other 2 stories because we try to keep it at the mid-century style, the same way that it is right now. So the front of the house, you're going to see the beams, you're going to see the look of the front of the house is going to be, even though it's not going to be the same because it's going to be a 2-story, but we're going to keep the style of the house very, very close to that style of to what it is right now.
Okay. So if you went back to where you were doing, I don't know if it was Google Earth or whatever you were doing before, the house to the left of the proposed premises. So that as you went down, you went down to the left a little bit. And I think just for my purposes of the question I'm asking, I think you were showing another 2 stories similarly. It might have been in the street behind, but you said it was in the second story is in the back of the house. That I think was the same type of construction you're describing, I think, right? Just sort of a almost like lifting of the roof rather than a separate angling.
On the left side of the house and the center of the house is basically the roof going to go up, but on the right side of the house, we're going to have a second story.
there's one, and if I may, I actually live pretty much right behind here. So I could tell you, if we go around the corner.
Right here. So that one on the corner, the one if you went back to the corner of Deal.
Yeah.
So you come back, turn. So now that house on that corner there.
Yeah, this
right
one
here. Yep. Yeah. So if you keep scrolling a bit more, is that a second story addition on that side?
Yes.
Right. So is it going to have that look?
On the center of the house, it's going to look like that. On the left of the house, where the kitchen is in the front, the roof going to go the opposite side to make to give that mid-century look.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking the question is because I've noticed that that's been some of the construction over there. And when Mr. Fuller asked his question about whether it's consistent in the area, I thought the same thing, and it seems like the style will be. It's just a raising a bit.
Right, and I would say, and what I was going to show you is, again, I know this neighborhood quite well because I live right here, and I will tell you that already people have, there are two-story. I mean, this is a colonial that's right behind it.
Yeah.
Also, this house that's right behind it.
I know what you're saying, but we're talking about Deal Road that is like traveled by, and so the consistency of look is, I think, what I don't want to put words in Mr. Fuller's mouth, but when he made his statement, it made me think that way, and that's why I'm asking this question. Not that I mean change is change, but I just mean to suggest that I don't know if you had any kind of artist rendering, so I'm just trying to get a sense of what it's going to look like from the outside.
You've got the picture. We have a picture in our packet of what the front looks like. If you could share it.
You have a picture of it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it pulled up.
Where's the plan?
Here.
Go down.
1 second.
Scroll up.
Yeah, here we go.
There you go.
There we go. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah. So I think that, and I think I can.
And then there's no roof line. It definitely does not. It doesn't, in my mind, prevail the same characteristics that the house has now, and certainly not the ones next door.
No, it's
but
not like,
if in your opinion, it does, yeah, I'll let you say that.
I just, yeah, my only concern is it gonna dwarf the houses around it from, and I don't know if I can really have that spatial recognition to get that from the size, but I mean, in width, and how does it compare to the houses along Deal Road and near it?
In width, meaning, I mean, the
I
foot.
mean, length, across the frontage.
You're not getting any, you're not getting any longer across the front,
Okay.
right? So the house it's the same length across the,
Okay, so we're not, okay.
Yeah, yeah, the extension is essentially, he's changing the footprint of the house ever so slightly. The extension is a small, the small space in the back that he's squaring off, which I can go back to that in just a moment. Again, he's squaring off a small piece in the back, and then raising the roof on one half, just to make the 7 foot ceiling, which is pretty low, a little bit higher to make it nice. But then on the right side of the house, he's going up. And so again, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, the footprint of the house is only going out a very small amount. Right, our variance is only for, I misquoted, but 1 to 2 feet out, because the second floor is going to be cantilevered out ever so, so slightly to accommodate the reasonable sized bedrooms. So the overall bird's eye view and footprint of the house is not changing all that much. It's just that he's going up to a second, he's going a little bit higher. He's going higher. So he's putting a second story.
You see the character that you see on the second floor with the beam, with the square. That's going to be, it doesn't show it so much also on the left side. That's why it's look a little bit off, but it's the same way that you see it right now when you drive on the street that have exposed beam, the California style. That's the way it's going to stay on the front of the house and also on the back of the house. We like that style. The house right now have no drywall on the ceiling, because we really like, there's no attic. We just see the roof rafters. So we really like that. So we're going to keep, that's the plan, is to keep the same look on the inside and on the outside, and also, to match, well, part of the street, not all of the houses on the road, but part of that, also the match. We like that style of the house.
Okay, thank you.
I think, just to answer the question, it doesn't seem to me anyway that it's going to dwarf what's there. You're going up another story, but you're not increasing the size of it so dramatically as to dwarf the neighbors.
And I appreciate that. I didn't mean to, you said.
No, it makes sense.
Term. I didn't have a visual, so I appreciate it.
We're all concerned about that. We don't want to build a house. You don't want to have a giant house next to our house and it overshadows it. But I think, and Gilly, you mentioned earlier, how many square feet approximately you're adding to the second floor?
About 850. The second floor is 850 square feet. That's what we're adding.
It's not, he's not building a McMansion on Deal Road.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members' questions or comments? Any members of the public, questions or comments? Okay, and Mr. Esses, I'll ask if you can stop sharing, and is there a motion to close
How to do that?
public hearing?
There we go.
Motion.
I'll second it. Nicole, please call the roll.
I think she's on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Okay, Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Might be muted.
yeah. That's what I was-
Sorry.
Oh, there he is.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, or Ms. Talarico
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't believe there are any conditions, so will someone offer for a positive resolution? I will offer. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Fuller,
It's a tough one. I'll vote yes.
okay. Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
I agree with Mr. Fuller. I had some concerns, but I think they were adequately addressed and I appreciate that. So I'll vote yes.
okay. Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe next case, Kyle Smith, block 19, lot 10, 210 Cedar Street, Ocean, Zone R4. This is an application to enclose a pre-existing non-conforming front porch in that it doesn't meet the required front and side yard setbacks. There is also a pre-existing non-conforming garage on the property that should be addressed by the applicant. And Kyle Smith, are you here?
I am here with my mother.
Okay, I see you, Kyle. And if you can just state your name and your address?
Kyle Smith, 210 Cedar Street, Oakhurst, 07755.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Higgins to provide his report.
It's very, very short. It's an existing porch that's partially enclosed, and they basically want to put windows on a door on it to fully enclose it. I don't see any significant impact for doing what they're doing. It's not going to look much different once they're done than what it is now. It makes the house more usable. With regard to the non-conforming garage, I think that has to be discussed.
Okay, Mr. Matlack?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one thing that the plot plan shows that the carport is proposed within the existing footprint of the driveway, and the rendering shows it extending beyond that. So I just want some clarification on that.
Okay, Mr. Smith, if you can raise your right hand, please. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay, if you can please tell us about your request, and if you can address the porch and the carport in your response as well, please.
Yes. So me and my mother are simply enclosing our front porch. We're not extending the length or width or height at all. Also just kind of given like the recent increase in population in Ocean Township, we feel that enclosing the front porch will provide our family, pets, additional safety and privacy. Our home was built in 1911, so like over 100 years ago, and that's why we're applying for the variance. Carport, I don't know how this fits into this equation, because can you go into depth a little more on that?
Madam Chair, I apologize. I had my reports out of order. I was looking at the wrong one.
Okay.
With Mr. Smith's application, I don't have any substantial engineering issues.
And if DW can mute. Okay. Okay, so there is no carport that we need to address. Thank you for that.
Very good.
Sorry about that.
Do any board members have questions or comments? Okay, anyone from the public, questions or comments? Okay, motion to close.
I'll move, Manel.
Second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, best of luck to you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Next case, Renee and Jeff Mass, block 110, lot 23, 1306 Stewart Avenue, Ocean, Zone R6. This is an application to expand the non-conforming covered front porch, construct a conforming rear addition, and alter an existing rear deck within the side yard setback. Variances are required. And Renee and Jeff Mass, are you here?
We are. Hi.
Hello.
Okay. If you can state your name and your address.
Sure. Renee Mass, 1306 Stewart Avenue, Ocean.
Jeff Mass, 1306 Stewart Ave, Ocean.
Okay, Mr. Higgins, if you can provide your report.
Sure. Again, it's a short report. The applicant proposes to expand an existing 6-foot wide, 5.25 foot deep enclosed front porch to be 6 foot deep and span the entire width of the residence, which is 30 feet, and to construct a 2-story addition at the rear of the building. Minimum front yard setback variance is required. 30 feet is required by the ordinance, 24.75 feet exists to the porch and 19 foot to the steps. And they're proposing 24 feet to the porch and again, 19 feet to the proposed steps. The existing front porch is simply just a portico type entrance. It's really not functional for anything other than providing a little bit of shelter as you're walking into the house. What they want to do is put a porch across the front of the house to improve the livability of the building. It's going to be an open structure. It's not going to be enclosed, and the building coverage will not exceed the ordinance maximum, so I don't have any significant concerns. With regard to the accessory structure, the proposed deck, the accessory structures must maintain the required 10-foot side yard setback. 5.83 feet exists and 5.83 feet is proposed for the rear deck. And the ordinance is a little bit quirky in this instance for this zone because the principal building can be setback 5 feet, but the accessory has to be set back 10 feet. And I think there was an error when the ordinance was amended a number of years ago. I really have no problem at all with the deck being set back 5 feet. That's consistent with the existing structure.
Okay, Mr. Matlack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing I have to note is that the applicant should discuss whether any grading modifications are proposed, including any potential impacts to adjacent properties. Otherwise, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, and Renee and Jeff Mass, if you can please tell us about your request and address.
I don't think we swore them in though.
Oh, sorry. Ooh, move.
I'm like, wait. No worries.
Raise your right hand. And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Now, please tell us about your request. And if you can address Mr. Matlack's question about the grading.
Sure. With the request that we have, there would be no grading modifications or impact to any adjacent properties. Ultimately, what we wanted to do was to have a way to sit outside and talk to our neighbors, because as mentioned before, it basically is a portico to go in and out of the house. So, by having something, just to be able to sit and, because a lot of the homes on the street do have porches, some specific, some are very similar to the request that we have actually proposed with this variance. So, anything?
Okay. Mr. Matlack, does that affirm for you, or do you have any other?
That's
questions?
fine. That's fine. I don't have any issues with that.
Okay, board members, questions or comments? Okay, public, anyone from the public, questions or comments? Okay, motion to close the public hearing. I'll motion or move.
Second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller? Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi?
Yes.
Mr. Mamie?
Yes.
Ms. Talarico?
Yes.
And Madam Chair?
Yes. And is there an offer for positive resolution?
I'll make an offer.
A second. Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi?
Yes.
Mr. Mamie?
Yes.
Ms. Talarico?
Yes.
And Madam Chair?
Yes. Okay, thank you and good luck to you.
Thank you
very
very
much. Have a good evening. Next case, Ralph and Adele Dweck, block 75, lot 1, 603 South Edgemere Drive, West Allenhurst, Zone R5. This is an application to keep a habitable third story. The attorney for the applicant is Michael Wenning. And
Mr. Wenning is back.
Yes, I'm here.
You took care of Bradley Beach?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Higgins to please provide his report. in
Now
your
we mark the
exhibit.
packet.
Oh, sorry. We're gonna
Let's
mark
mark the
it
packet.
tonight.
All right, that's perfectly fine. We're gonna mark the packet as B1, Nicole. It does contain a lot of the exhibits and other information going to be presented by Mr. Wenning. So this is an important packet.
Yeah, this is a little bit different application because it's for a certificate of non-conformity, which the applicant should demonstrate that what exists, it's a third story with, it's a single family dwelling, only 2 stories are permitted. And the applicant should present evidence that what exists there now predated the ordinance and that it's a pre-existing non-conforming condition. When I looked at it and looked at the applicant's information, it appears that that's the case, but I think we need to have some testimony in that regard. And the building height, while it's not provided, and I know Ben asked a question about that, when I looked at it, it appears the building is lower than the maximum 30 feet permitted. And again, the height is measured not from the ground, it's measured from the first story above grade. And it's the 3 stories, and they all appear to be less than 9 feet in height. So I would think that the height is actually less than the 30 feet permitted by the ordinance.
And Mr. Higgins, when is the year of the ordinance?
I don't know.
We've
last-
usually gone by the early 60s, haven't we?
Yeah, there was one in the 60s, there was one in the 50s, there was one in the 60s, and then there was one in 1992. And I think what you really need to do is, I understand you might have somebody testifying as to the type of construction.
Yes, I have the.
And I've been involved in a number of these applications in other communities. And one of the things we do is try and look at the type of construction and demonstrate that that construction actually was construction that predated the ordinance. And I think that's a pretty good indication.
All right. Can I go forward?
Thank you. Just if we can hear from Mr. Matlack first, and then you can proceed.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim already touched on it, but my only question was if the height of the existing structure could be verified. And that was
It's
all.
my understanding that Mr. Higgins verified it to be less than the 30 feet required.
Okay, Mr. Wenning? You may
Good evening.
proceed.
Michael Wenning of the firm of Keith Winters, Wenning and Harris in Bradley Beach. This is the application of Ralph and Adele Dweck, owners of 603 South Edgemere Drive. During the purchase process, they just purchased it this year. The township would not give a CO for the use of the 3rd floor. So as we mentioned, this is an application for a certificate of non-conformity to memorialize the vested statutory right pursuant to NJSA 40:55D-68, so as to permit continuation of the use of the 3rd floor anteroom, bedroom, and bathroom, and obtain a certificate of designation as a pre-existing non-conforming structure. The statute authorizes the zoning board of adjustment to make that determination. And Ocean Township also has a statute that is consistent with the state statute allowing non-conforming uses. I had submitted in the packet a business record, a copy of the township property card found in the township website, and it states that the year built for this property was 1931, and that was attached to the application. And you can hear the testimony I have with me tonight, James Katnack of Cat Construction, who does renovation work. And Mr. Katnack, are you present?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Katnack, can you state your name and your credentials?
My name is James Katnack III. I've been in business since, well, I've been in construction since 1978, and I've been in my own business since 1992.
And you do home improvements?
Yes, as well as additions, new houses, whatever it takes for construction.
And you are licensed by the state of New Jersey as a home renovation expert?
Yes,
And how long have you been licensed by the state?
since they required it. I don't know the exact date, but I've been in business since 1992. It wasn't required at that point, but then they made it required, and so I've been in, had my license since then.
I'll offer them to the board.
Okay, we will accept. And Mr. Katnack, will you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, please
All right,
proceed.
Jim, you were contacted by me to visit the site at 603 South Edgemere Avenue,
Yes, I was.
and you had the opportunity to, and the purpose was to determine if construction and materials were consistent with the township records that the single-family house was constructed in 1931. Is that correct?
Yes,
Now, did you have full access to the house?
I did.
Did you view all 3 floors?
I did.
Did you personally visit the 3rd floor?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe for us whether the trim was consistent with the 1st and 2nd floor, and what evidence you have as to the age of the property?
The trim is consistent with first and second floor. It's got the moldings on the side with, I'm not sure if it had plinth blocks on the bottom, but then it had the wide band on top with a solid crown going across the top of all the windows and doors. And that's consistent with that style or that age house. I also, there's a couple of attic spaces going down to the roof line on the 3rd floor. I went into those attic spaces because it goes from nothing to like maybe 5 feet, maybe 6, along the roof line of the rafters. And on the inside walls of the 3rd floor walls is all lath, wood lath and plaster. I do have a picture of the inside of that. I don't know if you can see it.
Wait, we have it. The board has it in their packet.
Oh, all right.
It's number 14 or page. It's labeled at the bottom at 14 in our packet.
So that wood is consistent with that time period thing. And the oxidation on that wood is, as you can see, it's like browned and it's, aged.
So did it lead you to a conclusion as to when the 3rd floor was constructed?
As I felt like it was built when the house was built.
And that would be, was it consistent with the year of 1931?
Yes.
And if that is the case, clearly it predates the zoning. And just to give the board some understanding, that particularly newer members of the board, is this requirement of the land use law. Basically, if the zoning changes, a property owner has 1 year to go to the zoning officer to get a certificate of nonconformity, and the zoning officer can issue it. After 1 year, the property owner has to go to the board to have the board issue the certificate. And I've been involved in a number of these where, like this one, that the house was built 80 years, maybe 90 years ago. And to go back and get records from that period of time, just it's unfair to applicants. So what I have done in the past when I've been working on these is try and get information as to the construction of the house and whether it is consistent with when the entire house was constructed, which predated the ordinance. And I think that's the type of evidence that's just been submitted to you. I don't know if Mark has anything he wants to.
No, I would agree. The gentleman that's testifying in the mid 50s and 60s, they didn't use lath and plaster. Is that correct?
Correct.
They would, at that point, they used drywalls, whatever it is that we all have now, right?
Yeah, they used a certain type of drywall. but they put plaster over top of that.
Yeah,
That
but
was, that was the progression of building.
right. So nobody in 1955, for instance, would build a house like this.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be the application.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board member, question or comments from board members?
Yeah, I have a question. So Mark, just so we have the record right, I mean, so the standard for us, I mean, is it just a preponderance of the evidence that if we believe this structure was built before a certain, or
I think it was 1956 or 57 that we had the first owners. I don't know what zone this is in, or when we changed the zone to a single to 2.5 stories, I believe is our maximum. But if it existed and was legal prior to the change of the ordinance, this board must then grant a certificate of non-conforming use. So if and prior to 1956 or 1957, we did not have a requirement that you couldn't have a third floor. We just, there was no maximum floors. There may have been a maximum height. I don't even know if there was a maximum height then. The zoning ordinances were pretty vague.
But I guess my question is, does the, and again, just for informational purposes, so I know how I'm voting, so is there anything with respect to the use of that third floor as a continuing use? Is that what's going? I mean, how
they're asking, they were, whatever it is, they sold the house, and unfortunately, the zoning officer decided that it was non-compliant, as of course it had a full third floor. As a result of that, they were issued a limited CO, and they're coming back to the board here saying that this existed as a legal, 33-story home prior to 1956 and 1957 when the ordinance changed.
Okay.
And they're giving you proof, that they didn't build houses like this in the 50s. These are, what was built in the 30s, probably pre-war type construction. And the gentleman is indicating that these are the walls for that third floor, because he went into the attic, which supports the walls for the third floor, as well as the molding and everything else being consistent with the first and second floor. And the age of the house is put on the books of Ocean Township is 1931, 92 years ago.
Yeah, the house directly adjacent seems to be very similar in construction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members?
On that picture?
Pardon me?
Wondering if that was horsehair plaster on that lead.
Yes.
Which one?
The horsehair plaster with the wood lap. They used to put horsehair in the plaster to bind it together.
Okay, any other questions, comments from board members?
Latham. Horsehair plastic.
You're intrigued by that, Mr. Steinberg.
I didn't know that.
Are you
I didn't know.
ideas?
No, I mean, we did have a house that had a peanut foundation many years ago. Didn't we? There was peanuts as part of the foundation in one of these proofs.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller, Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. And if someone will offer for positive resolutions.
I'll make a motion for a positive resolution, I guess, on the application for a certificate of non-conforming use. Is that it, Mark?
Yes. For a third floor, for a habitable third floor.
I'll second.
Okay, Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Winnie.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, the last case is Gold Coast Automotive, Block 3, Lot 7.01, 2123 Highway 35, Ocean, Zone C2. This is an application to amend a previously approved final site plan, Phase 2 expansion to reduce it from 11,746 square feet to 2,608 square feet, including bays, a car wash, and a mezzanine. And the attorney for the applicant is Mr. Rick Brodsky.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Rick Brodsky on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. And Mr. Steinberg, it just dawned on me, if would it be considered a conflict if we purchased a vehicle?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. If you, the purchase is over,
Sorry,
right?
it just dawned on.
No, it's a reasonable question. You know, there's certain criteria for conflict of interest. And you own the vehicle now, right? Or lease it?
Correct.
And wouldn't have any monetary gain or any advantage whether or not you voted for or against the application.
No.
So I don't feel there is a conflict unless you feel that you could not, you know, be impartial in your decision.
No, not at all. And I apologize. I don't know why. It
No, it's certainly better to ask than not. And that's come up before when we've dealt with local merchants on other things. And again, your purchase is concluded, you're finished, and you wouldn't have any gain by voting one way or the other on this application. So I don't believe you have a conflict. If you're comfortable in voting, you certainly can continue.
Okay, I am comfortable. Thank you.
Unless Mr. Brodsky objects.
No, hopefully you like the car, but you know.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Higgins, you can. Oh, there you are. Okay, you're muted.
You're muted.
There we are. Yep, I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. It's a long report, but it's a simple application, really. This is a use that's a conditionally permitted use in the zone. It's received conditional use approval from the board in the past, and none of this application that's being presented here doesn't increase or exacerbate any of the existing non-conforming conditional use requirements. So as far as the conditional use goes, it doesn't change. They're taking a very large addition that was approved years ago, and they're substantially reducing the size of that addition in terms of square footage and reducing the height of that addition by approximately 2 feet. What they are doing is adding a car wash that is exclusively for the use of the dealership to prepare vehicles and for customers when they're having their vehicles serviced. So it's accessory. It's not a commercial car wash that would add another principal use to the site. So in terms of the intensity of the use and in terms of the lot coverage, it's being improved significantly. The signage on the building, first of all, the freestanding signage isn't changing. That's been approved in the past. The signage on the building is changing, but again, it's changing for the better, in my opinion. Their most recent approval, which was in May of 2012, they were approved for 4 facade signs totaling a little over 450 square feet. They're proposing now 6 facade signs, and interestingly enough, back in 2009, they were approved for 6 facade signs that were over 500 square feet total. But what now they're proposing is 6 facade signs, 5 facing Route 35 and 1 facing the south side of the building. And the total signage area is only going to be 261 square feet, as opposed to the currently approved 453 square feet. So that's, again, I think, while there's more signs, I think in terms of the impact, it's a much less impact than what was previously approved. The minimum landscaped area on the site, they're saying on the plan that's permitted that the landscaping for the site is 32%, And the prior approval granted a variance for landscaping of 18% of buildable lot area. I think what's happened there is that the calculation that the current engineer included in the landscaping includes the buffer area, and the buffer area is excluded from the landscape requirement. The ordinance requires a minimum of 25% of the buildable lot area to be landscaped, and what was previously approved was 18%, and I don't think that's going to change. We need some clarification there. There's a landscape plan of sorts that's presented, but it's only a few plants, and my recommendation is that a landscape plan be provided that shows everything that's been approved in the past and what they're proposing now, so that in the future, it's very easy to inspect the site and to enforce the landscaping on the site. And again, what they've proposed is the landscaping and lighting on the same plan. And for some reason, historically, landscaping and lighting has been shown on the same plan because they both begin with L, and it really doesn't make sense. The lighting clutters up the plan, and it's better to have separate landscape and lighting plans. So my recommendation would be, if the board approves this application, that a condition be that they submit separate landscaping and lighting plans, and that the landscape plan include not only what they're proposing with this application, but everything that was approved in the past. The waivers, tree location and preservation plan, I don't see a need for that because they're not, I don't think they're removing any trees. And the minimum number of trees, 15 trees per acre are required. That's 35 total trees. And there's just not enough information to determine whether or not that's met. I recommend that the landscape plan be provided that shows the required number of trees. That's it.
Thank you, Mr.
Are we keeping, Jim, are we keeping the previous site plan and we're just phasing it this way?
No, the previous site plan is changing because they're taking phase 2 of that site plan, which was the 15,000 or so square foot.
Okay. Well, the way the application was worded, that confused me. In other words, they're scratching the original phase 2 and replacing it with this one.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Which is smaller.
Much smaller. But I do think we need testimony on the record as to the fact that the car wash is going to be solely for the dealership. I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Matlack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll touch on a couple of things in my report. Regarding traffic, parking, and circulation, I think we need just a little bit of testimony just to clarify if the amendment to the previously approved phase 2 results in any additional traffic demand or any additional employees that would require parking. Additionally, I think that maybe a little discussion about how this is going to be constructed and where staging areas are, and if that's going to impact the storage area of the cars or anything like that. And then regarding stormwater management, there were a couple of minor technical things that need to be addressed, just inverts of a pipe, as well as a location of a trench drain, for which there's a detail. And I had the same questions about the landscape and lighting plan that Jim did. The landscaping, it seems to me that it doesn't really match the plan versus the plant schedule. I think if they separate the two, that would make it clear. And also clarification if the whole site is getting new lighting or if just new building sconces are going to be installed, would clarify things for me. And that's all I have in my report.
Okay, Mr. Brodsky.
Did we mark the packet as B1?
Yes.
Of course we didn't. I mean, yes,
Okay.
we did.
I did.
Okay. Thank you. Because it contains a lot of the plans. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, as Mr. Higgins and Mr. Matlock described, the subject matter of the application is really just a proposed addition of about 2,608 square feet, which is significantly smaller than the previously approved 11,746 square foot addition for this phase. I have with me this evening the project engineer, Michael Gallagher, as well as the project architect, Michael Monroe. And so I think what's best is if we just get Mr. Gallagher sworn in, and so he can walk the board through, one, the site as it exists, what's proposed as part of this application, and also to address a couple of the points that that were raised by Mr. Higgins and Mr. Matlack for purposes of clarity and confirmation. Indeed, in response to Mr. Higgins, one of Mr. Higgins' points, just initially, you'll hear from our witnesses that the proposed car wash, which will be part of the addition, is indeed for existing clients, existing customers, not open to the public. So in fact, it'll have a real positive effect in terms of reducing the amount of trips onto and off of 35, because right now the cars are actually taken off site to be washed for the customers. So we see that as a big benefit. And so what I'd like to do, unless the board has any questions, is let's get Mr. Gallagher sworn in, and he can walk the board through the site and what's proposed.
Mr. Gallagher, will you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, and if you can tell us about your credentials.
It's Michael Gallagher, Gallagher. I have my bachelor's in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Maryland. I've been practicing civil engineering for 16 years. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania, Delaware, Florida, and Maine. My licenses are current and in good standing, and I've been accepted as an expert in site engineering by approximately 85 boards throughout the state of New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania. And I've appeared before the Ocean Township Planning Board, but this is my first time before the zoning board.
Okay, we will accept. Mr. Brodsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, Mr. Gallagher, if you would, just walk the board through the site as it exists and what's proposed as part of the application. I believe you're going to share your screen for ease of reference.
Certainly. Can I be promoted to a host, please? There we go. All right.
Great.
Oh, okay, so assuming everybody can see my screen, this is an exhibit we prepared for this evening, which I sent to Amy this morning. It's marked existing conditions exhibit. It's a 1 of 1, and essentially it's just it's an aerial image of the site.
We'll need to have that marked, Mr. Steinberg.
Right, I guess that would be A1.
A1.
I can actually mark it right on here.
We'll mark it. We'll figure it out how to do it later.
Just in case we need to reference. So this is the existing site. It's block 3, lot 7.01. It's on Route 35 northbound, just north of the West Park Avenue intersection. To our south, you have the Sunoco station, the old Squan Furniture. And to the north, you have the former the Mini Cooper dealership. I think at one time there was a Hummer dealership, and then we have the senior living to our east, as well as Louise Welts Park. The site's about 5.5 acres, and it's occupied by an existing operating Cadillac dealership, which is approximately 22,111 square feet, has 388 parking spaces, most of which are for vehicle inventory, as you can see from this image. And it's got 2 right-in, right-out driveways along Route 35. You have a right-in and a right-out, and then further to the north, another right-in and another right-out. So the site's been up and operating for for several decades. And starting in the late 2000s, Gold Coast began making renovations to the property. They went through several site plan approvals to obtain site plan and bulk variances, as well as a conditional use variance for a 3-phase approach to the expansion of the dealership. So in phase 1 involved a covered enclosed vehicle service drop-off area, which is this area at the north end of the building. That was about 2,300 square feet. That was approved in 2009 and constructed in 2012. And then phase 3, I'm going a little out of order because phase 2 is actually the crux of the issue tonight. Phase 3 involved a small vestibule in the northwest corner of the building in this location, as well as at the main entry, just slight modifications to those areas, which totaled a little over 1,100 square feet. Next, in 2000, as part of the 2009 approval and then an amended approval in 2012, they were approved to construct an 11,746 square foot addition as phase 2, which would have been this large rectangular area. And just for reference, I guess we would mark this A2. This is the approved site plan exhibit. And just in yellow outlines the footprint of the building, as well as some of the differences in the site plan. You had these 2 long double stacked rows of parking, which were proposed to be just as you see them here. Essentially, everything for phases, all the site improvements for phases 1, 2, and 3 were constructed in phase 1, so that all they would have to do is come back and remove this pavement area and construct the building. So, you know, all the landscaping, all the stormwater management, all the utilities for this phase 2 were constructed as part of phase 1. For one reason or another, this addition was never actually constructed, and through a car dealership such as this goes through various changes and has specific requirements to maintain the manufacturer brand. So in this case, Cadillac, and one of the items that was driving this was the number of service bays, but there's been some changes in the way that Cadillac operates expects their dealerships to operate. So as many bays were not needed, but what was needed is a car wash. As Mr. Brodsky mentioned, the vehicles, they've been taking the vehicles off site and bringing them back to wash because Cadillac requires that with every sale and every service, the car has to be delivered back to the customer washed. So as you can imagine, that's been creating quite a hassle having to take the vehicles off site. So what we're proposing, would be A3, which is the proposed site plan exhibit, is a significantly reduced addition of about 2,608 square feet, the southern end of which would be essentially an automated car wash tunnel. So a car would enter from the east side of the building. It would go through the full length of the building. It would be washed and dried, and then it would come out this one-way drive aisle and enter into this main east-west access aisle. There would also be 2 detail bays and some parts storage on the first floor, and then the second floor includes about 1,300 square feet of office space. The existing dealership, you can see this notch in the roof of the building. That is existing second floor office space. That is just for the operations of the dealership. So that would essentially extend over the addition. So the construction requires the loss of 2 parking spaces. This addition that we don't anticipate it will add any traffic, any new customer base, because it's basically providing services that they're either already providing or are customary and incidental to the dealership. There will be no new employees. It'll just be utilized by the existing employees. As Mr. Brodsky mentioned, this car wash is not open to the public. It is purely for the sales and service vehicles. The vehicles that are run through it will be put through the tunnel by a staff member. Check and make sure I'm addressing all of Mr. Higgins and Mr. Matlack's questions.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions, Mike,
Yeah.
with regard to the landscaping.
Yep. So there is some, essentially 3 small areas which will be landscaped. We're happy to separate the landscaping and lighting plans. The only reason we did that was just for the to make for a briefer plan set, but I totally understand the concern. So we'd be happy to break them out into separate plans. With regard to the amount of information on the plans, we will certainly add all the trees that were required as part of the prior site plan approval. They've all been planted, but we'll certainly show them in their locations, which demonstrates that we do meet the minimum required number of trees. I actually believe we're in excess. And obviously, we're still subject to the conditions and requirements of that original site plan approval. So if any trees or other plantings from those plans happen to have not been planted, we'll do them as part of this this effort. So we'll make that clear with notes on the plans as well.
In that regard, simply for maintaining the site and having everything on one plan, so it wouldn't just be trees, it would also be the shrubs and
Absolutely.
so on. But yeah,
Yeah,
the old
we'll basically bring over the old landscape plan and just make it abundantly clear what's existing and previously approved and existing and what's newly proposed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And same with the lighting as well. The lighting, we're only luckily the way everything was originally designed, we don't have to relocate anything. We're just going to be proposing some small building mounted lights which match the lights that are already mounted on the existing building.
And Mike, Mr. Higgins had raised a question. I think there was a typo in with regard to the lot coverage.
Yes, we are obviously reducing lot coverage from what was previously approved. We were approved in 2012 at 23%, and this reduction reduces that to 16.7%, which is well below the 27% that is permitted in the C2 zone.
Okay.
And Mr. Higgins was also correct. We did in the landscape area calculation, we did include the buffer area, so we will back that out of our calculations. And we certainly aren't reducing the amount of landscape area that was previously approved. I actually believe we're reducing impervious surfaces ever so slightly.
Okay. And Mike, Mr. Matlack had a question in his report, or sought confirmation or clarification with regard to construction equipment.
So yes, we will make the minor adjustments to or additional information on the inverts. The trench drain detail that is on the plans is actually not, we're not proposing a trench drain, so we'll remove that detail from the plans. In the initial stage of the design, we were planning to have a trench drain, but we were ultimately able to make it work with a single inlet. So we'll remove that detail from the plans. And then with regards to the construction staging, if I go back to the existing conditions exhibit, this entire area where the addition is being constructed is paved. So, and there's a curb here along this, we'll call it, basically a raised concrete display area. So the addition essentially butts almost right up to this curb of this display area. So the way the addition will be constructed is obviously we'll remove all the vehicles from the display area and most likely the vehicles from these 2 parking areas in order to create a staging area, and it'll be cordoned off with safety fence. There is an entrance to the service area roughly in this location, which we'll have to maintain access to. But that can be done, with again with safety, security fencing, cones, a variety of different methods. But the area will be very confined, obviously, because it's a relatively small addition. So this area, this large area you see here will be ultimately a staging and a construction area. If I go back to the proposed, you can see how it overlaid over that existing paved area. There really isn't a lot of disturbance, and they won't need a tremendous amount of room. So I think between removing these cars and these cars, they'll have more than enough room to stage equipment, construct the addition, and make sure they maintain safe egress into and out of the building.
And Mike, there was also, could you just clarify lighting, what's proposed with respect to lighting?
Yes, I briefly mentioned we're going to be just proposing building mounted lights on the 3 facades of the addition, just to maintain safe lighting levels for security and for just vehicular movement.
Okay. Oh, one last final item, Mike, is with regard to signage. I'm jumping back to Mr. Higgins' report with regard to signage. Any new signage being proposed and what's existing?
So with regards to the facade signs, we have a total of 5 facing Route 35.
Right.
The total sign area is 261 square feet. It's all generally conforming other than the number. And a variance was eliminated from the prior approval. So, you know, I think Mr. Monroe could probably touch more on that, since it's building mounted signage, but from the standpoint of the prior approvals, it's a reduction.
Yeah. Questions for Mr. Gallagher?
I have one quick question. You talked about relocating the stacks of cars that you have there during construction. Is there a space on site to store those? Or are they going to be removed off site?
I do believe they have some offsite. They do utilize some offsite storage, so it'll be a balance based on their inventory at the time. It's not a tremendous number of spaces. I believe, you know, the last time I was there, they had some open inventory space, but obviously can change very quickly. So whether it's on site or just off site, that they will have to accommodate those approximately 30 cars.
Okay, and it's not going to impact customer parking or employee parking?
No. The customers generally park in these areas at the front and north side of the building, as well as in this area. So all the customers, the spaces that are generally used by customers, will remain open and available throughout construction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Gallagher?
Don't believe so. I believe we can move on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Monroe? You're muted,
Mr.
Mike.
Monroe.
Okay, I'm on.
There we go.
Okay.
Mr.
Monroe, if you can raise your
Monroe's
right
form.
hand. And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I do.
Okay, if you can tell us about your credentials.
Michael James Monroe, I'm 788 Shrewsbury Avenue in Kitten Falls currently. I've been licensed for over 30 years. I've testified before probably the same number of boards as the engineer, probably 60 or 70. Past president, New Jersey Shore AIA, currently president, chairman of the Red Bank Construction Board of Appeals, and I've done a lot of car dealership work of this type. I also did all the previous versions work on this building even before it was Gold Coast, and a lot of the other dealerships up and down the road in Ocean Township.
Okay, thank you. We will accept.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, Mr. Monroe, if you would, could you just real briefly walk the board through, from an architectural perspective, the proposed plan?
Yeah, I put my screen up. I don't know if I can share screen as effectively as Mike Gallagher did, unless you have the plans up.
No, I don't have your elevations. If you want to email them to me, I can throw them
No,
up.
Gave him the capability.
Okay. Can you see that?
Not yet.
All right.
There we go.
Share. Let me give you one more sec. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So this is our 4-sheet set of drawings.
And
the
Mike,
cover
these,
sheet.
these are drawings that were submitted as part of the packet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, just as an overview, the additions shown on the right-hand side, I'll go right to our second sheet, the ground floor plan. And you can see the front of the building is towards the bottom of the screen. The approved addition where the cursor is was the whole right-hand side. It's a very small percentage of what was there before. The front part of the building showroom, what was enclosed before was a new car display. We designed the drive-through where people come in, drop off cars on the left-hand side, which is basically here. They go into the shop, they're taken into the shop and they're washed. Two things about this addition is when the original additions were approved, they were looking at a lot more repair bays. Gold Coast, or Cadillac in general is on the forefront of the electric car movement. They've committed to be almost all electric, I believe, within the next 10 years. There's a lot less moving parts in the cars. And two things that you need is you need more electricity for more battery storage. You don't need as many service bays. There's relatively few moving parts in the electric cars. So the additional, we were almost doubling. There's 21 service bays shown. We were almost adding another 21 bays, and there actually was a plan to add a car wash at one point in that new addition. What we're proposing now in the small addition is just two detailing bays and a drive-through car wash. And as mentioned before, this car wash is going to make it safer. As many as 50 trips a day going out on Ocean on Highway 35. You all know what a torture loop that is going around to get across back and forth the highway. It's going to make it a lot safer, a lot less ingress and egress trips. Also, these are all state-of-the-art car wash facilities. They use almost no water. It's almost 100% recycled. They're very energy efficient. So there's a lot of pluses. Also in this building, we're putting in a whole bunch of car charging stations, which are going to be required. Every one of these buildings will be adding these in the future. So we have at the rear of the site, towards off where my cursor is to the rear right-hand side, we're going to be doubling the electric service for the whole building to start accommodating these the way things are going to be for the automotive industry. And then flipping up to the second floor plan, there is a very small second floor common area, as was pointed out by Mike Gallagher. And then we have a partial second floor area over the service space, over the equipment area for the car wash and over the detailing bays. This building has always been short on part storage. It's just the way it's been landlocked for 30 years. So eventually that unused area is going to become part storage, or the part storage will move up to where the existing second floor is, and those offices will move over to the new addition. So there's a real need for that type of space. But like I said, it's a fraction of what it was. And the building that was proposed had a lot more second floor space than what's proposed here. So it's all being used efficiently. Nothing more is being built than we needed to. It was designed to fit in. As I scroll down to the elevations, you can see the dotted in elevation of what was approved versus what was being built. And it was designed to fit within that row of parking so that we didn't lose another whole row of parking. So the current owners were very careful and sensitive to the site. The site's been functioning very well, and we didn't want to create a lot of disturbance. And that's basically it. From the rear elevation towards the bottom, it's just a car wash entry and 2 service bays. And that's basically the whole application. The front of the building has a really nice limestone panel, which you drive by, you see it's a real limestone. In the back of the building, stucco. This is going to match the whole back of the building the way it was, so that the limestone still is a prominent feature. So it's going to blend in entirely. And that's basically the whole application.
Questions for Mr. Monroe?
Don't believe there are any questions, Mr. Brodsky.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that's all I have this evening with respect to the application, unless the board has any, or the board's professionals have any additional questions.
I want to simplify this. Jim, can you go back to your report? You there, Jim? Oh, there. Jim, you're muted.
You're muted.
I am here. Yep. Hold on 1 minute.
Just go back to your report. I think I only see one variance. Just want to make sure. They're going to comply with the landscape. Oh, then maybe they can't. That's what I understand. Okay.
Okay.
So we know we need a change in variance for the signs.
The signs are really the only variance.
Right. No, are they going to meet the minimum landscaping area?
No, but they already have a variance for that, 18%.
So they don't need it. They're going to give you a landscape plan. Pardon me? Okay, so they don't need it.
For the landscape plan being submitted by a licensed landscape architect, unless they have a.
Are we gonna get a landscape licensed architect, or do you need we're just gonna get a landscape plan from the engineers?
Oh, no, we'll provide it signed by a landscape architect.
Okay,
our landscape architect who signs all our plans retired just as we were submitting this.
Okay, the tree location preservation plan, they don't need any waivers either. They have to comply, right?
No, if they comply with everything, the only thing they really need is the signage. And that's being made.
So we can do, if the board is amenable to the site plan, we can do one vote for the sign variances and amended site plan phase 2, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have to give it, and then some of those conditions are that they're going to have to give us a separate lighting plan and a landscape plan that shows what they have, what was approved, and what they're adding.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So they're going to have to meet all the requirements. So I only see one variance. It's for the signs, and it's obviously it's an improvement.
Yes.
Size-wise.
That's correct.
Did anybody testify why we need the 6 as opposed to we had 4?
So if I could jump back on.
Yeah, just give me that one, okay?
So Mike Monroe again. This is very confusing because there's been so many sign approvals in the past. There's actually, if you look at my signage schedule on sheet 404, the last page, or A2.4, on the lower right-hand corner, there's actually 7 sign locations that have been identified in the past and approved, and they're also tied into our elevations. And on that schedule, it says 3 of those signs are not being used. And there's no area in those signs. So I try to simplify it and keep the locations where they historically were, and if a sign was there. So there's actually only 4 signs that I have on my schedule, even though there's 7 sign locations that were talked about. So I think it would just make the signage as per the plans. But in general, the car dealerships have been going towards less signage and generally taking off some of the names of the dealerships and keeping them more less specific to that's just been a trend. So there's been less signage that's gone up on some of these buildings over the years than what was required in the past. And some stuff that was approved was just never put up.
Yeah, I reviewed the prior resolutions. The 2009 resolution approved 6 signs and at 500 plus square feet. The 2012 approved 4 signs at 400 and something square feet. And again, both of those had signs that were higher in terms of the height of the sign than the ordinance.
So now we're going to have 4 signs for 200.
No, we're going to have 6 signs for 261 square feet, and all of the signs will comply with the height requirement.
Okay, so
That's acceptable.
they sort of need a variance for number of signs.
The
Okay,
number of signs and an area, total area.
the total area of signs. Okay, that's all they need. All the other things they're going to comply with.
Yeah.
Correct.
On your report. So, okay. So if the board, I don't know if you want to open it to the public or board questions. It's up to you.
Any other board comments or questions? Okay, any members of the public, comments or questions? Okay, motion to close the public.
So moved.
Second.
Nicole, please call the roll.
Hey, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Beal.
Yes. Okay, we can offer.
Yeah,
Mr.
I think
Steinberg's
what they're,
summary.
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Higgins, but what we're asking for here is a variance to reallocate the signs basically, and since the last approval was for 4, now it's for 6, but for less square footage, and an amended phase 2 site plan.
That's correct.
Everything else the applicant's going to comply with. They're going to give us a landscaping plan. They're going to give us whatever else, the waivers they're going to comply with. They don't need any waivers. Is that correct, Mr. President? You don't need any waivers.
That's correct.
Yeah. So then we could do it in one vote for the sign variance and the amended phase 2 site plan.
So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Nicole, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Manal,
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
and Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, it's always easier when you make it smaller.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Appreciate you hanging in there for this late. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. I believe that concludes, and I just want to thank everyone for, I guess, double duty, kind of a meeting break meeting. So
Okay.
thank you, and I hope everyone has a
Ladies
good
and
evening.
gentlemen, that this is
Got a lot done.
This is one of the most efficient meetings we have ever had, and I want to thank everyone for their efforts. Really,
Yeah, good job on everybody.
Just a
Got a lot done.
reminder, next week we are virtual. August 18th, we are in person, and August 25th, nothing has been confirmed.
correct. We are
Well-
next week will be our last Zoom meeting. I don't believe we'll need an August 25th meeting.
Right, so the next week's meeting starts at 6 p.m. again.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Okay.
next Thursday. One application, that's Seaview, whatever it was.
Acquisitions or whatever they are, and
With the 1 hour break?
there will
Pardon
not be the 1 hour break that will happen. Okay? No.
No, what happened tonight is we had made room for Larchwood Mignon, and they carried it to the next meeting to see what they can work out. So we blocked time for them, and we didn't need it.
And Ben,
Ron's
get
doing
out
a great
here and
job
go
with the
enjoy your
calendar.
vacation.
Pardon me?
So telling Ben to get out of here and go enjoy his vacation.
Yeah.
No,
No more
Ben,
time.
Go.
By the way,
Phil.
real quick, Ron, it's our next meeting there's another one next week.
Yes, 6
Yes.
o'clock.
Is that the
Zoom.
Larchwood or?
No, that will be for the Seaview Acquisitions, the Memory Care Center.
Okay, got you.
Seaview Corporate.
He
Seaview
forgot it
Corporate.
already.
Okay.
And that one's virtual.
That's the last virtual meeting we'll be having, yes.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Yes.
Have a good
See you
night.
See everyone next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.